Harry says, like, all men are thinking that about cuddling after sex. And he is saying he is confidently wrong. And Sally reacts as if he's confidently wrong. But the movie doesn't necessarily show us that he's confidently wrong.
What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about, and so do we. We're sisters Tracy and Emily, collectively known as the Guy Girls. Every week, we take turns rewatching, researching, and reconsidering beloved media and sharing what we learn. Come overthink with us, and if you get value from the show, please consider supporting us. You can become a patron on Patreon or send us a one-time tip through Ko-fi. Both links are in the show notes. And thanks. Okay. We're good. It's you.
Oh,
I haven't watched anything. You're supposed to be telling me about Harry Met Sally. Okay. Right? Because I haven't watched anything. I have not prepared. I am the non-presenting sister this week.
I feel like this should be in our bloopers. I'm Emily Guy Birkin, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit, because pop culture is still culture, and shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, I'll be sharing my deep thoughts about the 1989 film When Harry Met Sally with my sister, Tracy Guy Decker, and with you. Let's dive in. So, Tracy, I'm pretty sure you've seen this movie, but it's not one we watched together. This is not a shared movie. But tell me what you know or remember about When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, I have seen it. It's been a minute. When I think about it, When Harry Met Sally, two scenes come to mind. The deli, where she fakes an orgasm, and the old lady goes, "I'll have what she's having." And the scene when she's freaking out on the kitchen floor because like the ex got married, but not to her. And she's like, "And I'm gonna be 40." And he's like, "In 8 years," or something like that. So those are the two scenes that come to mind immediately. But I have complicated feelings about this film. I haven't done like an analysis like we're about to do, but just in my mind, I'm like I loved them together. Like I had the warm fuzzies that the director was going for Meg Ryan and who is it?
Billy Crystal.
Yeah, him. I really got the warm fuzzies. It worked for me. But when I examine it, I'm like, this is where we got the phrase high maintenance, or where it became like a thing that we were, and like, I don't know, just I worry about what I internalized about romance as a result of this movie and movies like it, as much as I absolutely loved it while I was watching it. So that's kind of like what's in my like brain space about When Harry Met Sally. That, and I actually have a tab open right now of an AO3 story that is a fan fiction crossover retelling of Good Omens characters in the Harry Met Sally film. Those are the things. So yes, listener, I am a big nerd. Such a nerd. So why are we talking about this film today, Em?
So I really loved this film in my 20s specifically. I saw it for the first time, I think, as far as I can recall, when I was in high school. I remember watching it at a sleepover and not really having much of an opinion one way or the other at the time. And then saw it again, I think, in college. And I ended up buying, showing my age, the VHS tape of it in my first apartment. I didn't have cable, so I had my VHS collection to watch. It is genuinely funny. I mean, it is a very, very funny movie. And Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal have amazing chemistry as two actors, two comedians playing off of each other. And there is a lot to enjoy in this film in a lot of ways. But like you, there's a lot that I internalized from this movie. that I don't think either Nora Ephron, who wrote the screenplay, or Rob Reiner, who directed it, and who were themselves, like they made Sally to be a Nora Ephron stand-in and Harry to be a Rob Reiner stand-in. And though Nora and Rob were only ever friends, like they never had any romantic entanglement. And in fact, they originally intended for the movie to end with them remaining just friends. And that was just not going to fly. They created something that I think went in a different direction than they intended, I think. And then there's a lot in there that is also very 1980s belief system, heteronormativity, and understanding about like what women are and what men are. So I wanted to kind of revisit it. And I also was really interested to see what self-proclaimed feminists think about this film, because I have seen both those who love it, and they give some very compelling reasons for why it is a feminist film that is dated, and then those who just excoriate it and say it is trash. And it's interesting because I think they're both right.
Oh man, both and again.
So let me just, catch you up, since it's been a little while since you've watched it. I'm going to try to give a very basic summary of the plot, because it is, it's a rom-com. So the plot is kind of the skeleton of like what you get in a rom-com, on which you base the individual characters, the chemistry, and the humor. To start, the film has kind of this frame that's never explained of older couples, like in their 70s and 80s, telling the story of how they met and fell in love. And so it's a different couple each time, and it happens like something like there's one at the very beginning of the film, and then like every 15 or 20 minutes in between scenes, there will be another couple. So there's that aspect of it. So we meet the first couple there. Then we are brought to University of Chicago in 1977. We meet Meg Ryan's Sally Albright, who is going to be driving to New York, where she's relocating because they've just graduated, with Harry Burns, who is the boyfriend of her friend Amanda Reese. So she and Harry have never met each other before. This is just something like doesn't happen anymore in the modern world, where everyone's connected, but where you're like, oh, you're going to New York, my boyfriend's going to New York, why don't you guys drive together, that sort of thing. So it is, Sally describes it as an 18-hour drive. So they have a very long overnight drive to get to know each other, and go from strangers to two people who spend all this time in the car together. Harry is an obnoxious prick. He's a very, very funny obnoxious prick, which meant I didn't realize what an obnoxious prick he was. Because
You are a sucker for somebody who can make you laugh.
Someone who can make me laugh. I overlook so much.
It's true. It's true.
Really do.
I've seen it happen.
And to Sally's credit, and they're supposed to both be like 21, 22 years old at the time, because they just graduated college. Now, Billy Crystal was 40 at the time, and Meg Ryan was 27.
Huh.
So it's kind of impressive how they make Billy Crystal look like he's not 40. He doesn't look like he's 22. But he doesn't look like he's 40. He's got the kind of slenderness of a very young man. And Meg Ryan, you absolutely believe, you kind of want to, like, sweetheart, are you late for class? So to Sally's credit, she pushes back on his prickery. I think I just coined a word.
I like it.
Consistently. And so they stop at a diner at one point, and he makes a pass at her, and she is horrified and pushes and is like, you're dating my friend, who he was professing to love as they left. And so, like, stop coming on to me. And at that point, And she says to him, we are just going to be friends. And at that point, he says, you do realize that men and women can never be friends because the sex is always going to be in the way. She's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, a man can't be friends with an attractive woman he finds attractive because he'll always want to have sex with her. And she's like, okay, so a man can be friends with a woman he doesn't find attractive. He's like, no, you pretty much want to nail them too. Again, so obnoxious, but his timing is just like, I don't want it to be funny, but it is. So, and she said, like, she says, okay, I guess we're not gonna be friends then, which is a shame because you're the only person I knew in New York. So 1977, that's the end. You see them both arrive in New York and say, have a nice life. We get another older couple telling how they fell in love. And then it says 5 years later, and you see Sally at an airport, like just passionately kissing a man. And Harry comes by, stops, sees them and looks and is like, hey, and then like stops and waits. So the audience is thinking like, oh, he recognizes Sally. And no, actually, he recognizes the man she's kissing, Joe. They lived in the same apartment or same apartment building for several years. And so they stop and make small talk. And you can see Harry like looking at Sally, trying to place her, not figuring it out, and then leaving. And Sally knows exactly who he is. And she says, oh, thank God he didn't recognize me. Had the longest drive of my life with him. Then cut to the airplane. They're both on the same plane. He's sitting in the row directly behind her. And he recognizes her when she makes the request for a drink, because one of the through lines is that Sally like makes very specific requests for the things that she orders in restaurants, which is apparently based on Nora Ephron, who, when someone pointed it out to her, said, I just want it the way I want it. So it's that jogs his memory. And he's like, University of Chicago, right? He says, yes. And he's like, did we ever make it? Make it and she's like, no. And then the guy sitting next to Sally asks, hey, do you want to sit together? And she's like, no. And Harry says, yes. And so he sits next to her. He's disgusting her again. But he tells her like he's getting married. And she's like, really? That's such progress for you. I really love seeing you embrace like joy and all of this. And then he ends up telling her that basically he's getting married so he doesn't have to be single anymore. Like, he does like say good things about his wife to be Helen, but he's like, and it was just, I was so over the whole thing. And what whole thing? The dating, you go out for a safe lunch, you like each other enough to go to a dinner, you go out dancing, you do the white man's overbite. Just again, like, you're so obnoxious and so funny. And then, you go back to her place, you make love, and as soon as you're done, you know what you're thinking? How long do I have to lie here and hold her? Is 30 seconds enough? And Sally says, that's what you're thinking? And he says, yeah, that's what all men think. And she's like, that's horrible. He's like, well, how long do you like to be held? All night, right? Yeah, somewhere between 30 seconds and all night is your problem. And she's like, I don't have a problem. And he says, yes, you do. So if you weren't funny. So yeah, that's the end of like what we see on the plane. And then we see her in wherever they ended up. Not clear what airport they'd flown to. She's on one of those moving walkways, just trying to read a newspaper. And he comes up to her again and like is chatting and saying, you want to have dinner tonight? And she's like, no, I'm with Joe. You're getting married. And he's like, no, just as friends. And she reminds him that he said women and men can't be friends. And she ends up, I think it's at this point, she's like, you look like a normal person, but really you're the angel of death. And she finally is like, goodbye, Harry, and leaves. And so that's the end of that. So we see then 5 years later again. So we get another older couple. And then 5 years later again, we see Sally with her friends, Alice, who is her one friend who's married with kids, or a kid, and Marie, who is played by Carrie Fisher. And to the point where when Carrie Fisher died, this is the movie I went to watch.
Oh, interesting.
Because I adore her character, even though her character is not someone I can relate to in a lot of ways. Carrie Fisher's Marie has been in a relationship and in love with a married man named Arthur for years at this point. And so you see her saying yeah, I saw they just spent $1,600 on a new dining room table. I don't think he's ever going to leave her. And like Alice and Sally are like, he's never going to leave her. No, we know he's never going to leave her. And Marie consistently responds, you're right. I know you're right. And that's when Sally shares that she and Joe have broken up, that it's okay. It happened on Monday. It's a few days later. She's had some time to deal with it. And, they've been growing apart for some time, and it's okay. And so Marie's like, all right, so you're ready to get out there, and brings out a Rolodex and starts like, let me set you up with this guy. Let me set you up with this guy. And Sally says, no, I'm not I'm over Joe, but I'm in a mourning period. I'm not ready to date yet. And both Alice and Marie are like, well, don't wait too long, because, you remember so-and-so, he got divorced. Everyone said, give him time. 6 months later, he was dead. And Sally's like, so you're saying I should marry someone quickly in case he's going to die? And Alice says, well, at least you could say you were married.
Jesus.
I know. And Marie says, well, no, it's just, if you don't strike while the iron's hot, or something along those lines, someone else is going to marry your husband. You'll have to spend the rest of your life knowing that there's someone else married to your husband. Now, this is the aspect that feels like it's a time capsule.
Yeah.
Because that conversation seemed reasonable in 1989, and it is so ugly.
Yeah, it does not feel reasonable today.
Yeah. But to be fair to Nora Ephron and the film, Sally is like, what is wrong with my friends? She doesn't actually say that, but you can see from her face. She's like, criminy, what? About all of it. So we cut to Harry with his friend Jess, who's played by Bruno Kirby, at a football game, and Harry's telling the story of how his wife has left him. And there's some truly funny moments in this, because she says, I don't think I want to be married anymore. And he's like, well, maybe we can take some time to think about it. She's like, well, I have a friend who's going to South America, and I can sublet their apartment. I think I'm going to go do that. And in the midst of her saying that, moving people show up. So she's just telling him this. And so Harry explains that there's 3 big guys, and one of them wearing a t-shirt that says, don't fuck with Mr. Zero. And so he asks Helen, when did you call these people to move? And she said, last week. And so Bruno Kirby, Jess asks, so Mr. Zero knew you were getting divorced before you did? Mr. Zero knew. And then Harry says, I haven't even gotten to the worst part. And Jess is like, what's worse than Mr. Zero knowing? And it's all a lie. She's having an affair, and that's why she's leaving. He knows because he followed her. We then see Sally and Marie are at a bookstore, and Marie notices Harry is there and is kind of looking at Sally, and
and thinks that he's checking her out.
Yeah, and Marie's like, "Oh, you're getting checked out by someone in personal growth," and Sally says, "Oh, I know him. You'd like him. He's married." And she's like, "How do you know he's married?"
Oh,
yeah.
Burn.
Yeah. She's like, how do you know he's married? Well, because last time I saw him, he was about to get married. And she's like, well, how long ago was that? It's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. She's like, he might not be married anymore. And he's like, oh, he never remembers me anyway. It's fine. And then he comes up and says, Sally Albright. And she's like, oh, hi, Harry. And so she tries to introduce Marie, and Marie is leaving because she is the world's best wing woman in some ways. So Sally tries to basically brush him off, but he starts by asking how's Joe, and she says he's fine. I hear he's fine, and she's like, oh, did you break up? And she said yeah, and then she asked how about you? How's married life? He's like, not so great. And he's like, we're getting a divorce. And she's like, oh, and like, you see, that's when the like, oh, this asshole again kind of comes down. And she goes like, I'm really sorry about that. They end up like going to get something to eat and bonding over like the fact that they both have this heartbreak. And we finally hear from Sally what happened. She had taken Alice's daughter out to go to the circus, and they were playing I Spy. And even though she and Joe had always said they didn't want to get married or have kids, while she's with Alice's little girl, the little girl sees a man and a woman with two little kids, and the man has one of the kids up on his shoulders, and the little girl said, I spy family, and it's made Sally cry. And so she came home and said to Joe, like, we said that this is what we wanted, but actually this is what I want. And he said he didn't, and he left. And she was like, and I'm fine. You know, we didn't want the same thing. It's okay. So after that, they're walking, and Harry says, like, I really appreciate talking to you, and like, you're so much more fun than you were in 1977. Like, you know, you used to be really, like, you used to be really tough, but now you're much softer. And she's like, you see, that kind of thing sounds like a compliment, but really it's an insult. And he's like, all right, you're still as tough as nails. And she says to him, like, you didn't like me because I wasn't interested in you. You made a pass at me, and you had to make that a character flaw of mine instead of acknowledging that it might have something to do with you. And he basically says, okay. And he's like, what's the statute of limitations on apologies? And she said 10 years. And he's like, all right, I can get it just under the wire. He still doesn't say I'm sorry, though. And he asks, hey, would you like to go get dinner with me sometime? He's like, oh, are we becoming friends? And he says, yeah, I think we are. It was like the first time in my life. I have a woman friend who I don't want to have sex with. And she's like, that's real growth, Harry. So you see them becoming friends. And their friendship chemistry is pretty great, because you see them doing things that are just fun, like going to museums. He helps her like bring home a Christmas tree at Christmas. You know, they seem to have fun with each other. And then eventually they each start dating again. It starts with Sally goes out on a date, and she encourages Harry to try the same. They both had a terrible time, and so the next day they're kind of talking about how bad their dates were. And Harry shares like that he had a panic attack in the middle of the date because the woman mentioned that she went to I don't remember, University of Michigan, and it reminded him of Helen. And she goes, oh, did Helen go to University of Michigan? No, Northwestern, but they're both Big Ten schools. So just like letting you know just how neurotic he is. She says, you know what? It's our first date out. It's going to be a while before we really feel comfortable with someone, and maybe even longer before we're ready to go to bed with someone. And Harry says, oh, I went to bed with her. And Sally's like, you did? He's like, oh, yeah. Because he's a hound. It becomes clear that he is just, you know, having sex with all these women. And that gets to the scene you remember at the deli where they are talking, and she's like, so what do you do? How do you just get up and leave? He's like, yeah, I tell him, you know, I got a early meeting, early racquetball game. She's like, you don't play racquetball. He's like, yeah, they don't know that, but because they just met me. And she says, I'm really glad that we never got together, because I would have just been someone that you crept out of the house at 3 o'clock in the morning because you had to go clean your andirons and you don't even have a fireplace. And he says, I think they, you know, like, okay, I'm not super proud of it, but, you know, like they have a good time. And she's like, how do you know? And so they end up having a conversation where he's saying like, what are you saying? They fake orgasm? Get out of town. Doesn't happen. And she's like, look, do the math. All women say that they have faked orgasm at least once, and all men think that it's never happened with them. You do the math. He's like, well, it hasn't happened to me. She's like, you could tell the difference? He's like, yeah, I could tell the difference. And then she fakes an orgasm right there in the middle of Katz's deli.
I'll have what she's having.
Yes, and that is Rob Reiner's mother.
No way. That's fantastic.
So we see them at New Year's saying like, and Harry has had a beard this entire time since he and Helen divorced, and he has shaved it at New Year's, and that's kind of an indication that he's coming a little bit out of his depression. And they say they're there as friends, but they say like, if neither of us are with someone next New Year's, you got a date. Soon after that, they decide to set each other up with their best friends. So Harry is setting Sally up with Jess, and Sally is setting Harry up with Marie. At the dinner, Marie and Jess, like, there's a quick interaction that immediately sparks fly, and each friend asks, like ask Harry and Sally, like, hey, are you okay with me calling the person who's supposed to be your date? Like, because I won't if you don't want me to, but I really feel a connection. And both Harry and Sally are like, absolutely, absolutely. Can you wait like a week? I just don't want Harry to feel rejected. I don't want Sally to feel rejected. And they're like, absolutely, absolutely. And Jess says, I'm tired of walking. I think I'll get a cab. And Marie says, I'll go with you. And there's a cab that pulls up immediately, like, taxi, all right, let's go. And it's like less than 10 seconds. And so several months later, it is, because that's probably in January or so, it's still cold out. Several months later, it's warm out. Sally and Harry are shopping for a present for Jess and Marie, who are moving in together. And they run into Helen while singing to Sorry with the Fringe on Top to a karaoke machine in Sharper Image. Which leads to the best line that I wish I had more opportunity to use in my day-to-day life, because it freaks Harry out. He then like kind of takes it out on Jess and Marie, tells them like, you know, you're moving in, everything's lovely, but put your names in your books right now before you forget which belongs to who. Because, you know, this $8 dish you're going to be fighting over in 8 years, and then you'll be singing Sorry with the Fringe on Top in front of Ira, which is the man that Helen was with.
In front of Ira.
Anyway, Harry says some truly awful things to Sally, because like nothing other bothers her, nothing other backs up on her, and like, you know, she hasn't really gotten over Joe, and she's like, oh, so if I fuck somebody, that'll show that I'm over Joe. You're gonna have to move back to New Jersey because you've run out of people to sleep with in New York, and I haven't seen that making Helen a faint memory. And he apologizes, and then the next scene that you see is it's a little bit later, and Sally has learned that Joe is getting married to a younger woman, and she freaks out, calls Harry to come over, and he's comforting her and it's not that she wants Joe back, it's that like, what's wrong with her? Why is it that he wants to marry this like cute little 22-year-old, but not me?
That's the scene I remember.
Yeah. And it's like funny and devastating, like her sadness, and the like, and I'm gonna be 40. It's like, when? Like, someday in 8 years. So in the process of comforting her, he kisses her, she kisses him back, and they end up sleeping together. He freaks out and leaves in the morning. He stays overnight but leaves in the morning, and you hear them both thinking like, they both think it's a mistake. He hopes she says it first. She hopes she gets to say it first. They go to dinner. She says it was a mistake. And he like immediately is like, I am so relieved you feel the same way. It like way too quickly. And so she distances herself from him. And for very good reason. So at Jess and Marie's wedding, he approaches her and says like, are you going to be holding on to this forever? And, you know, like, it didn't have to mean something. It's like, and she's like, forever. It happened. Like, it just happened. He's like, it was 3 weeks ago. And he says, you know how like 1 year to a human is like 7 years to a dog? And she's like, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm the dog? Yes. And like, so she ends up having it out with him in the kitchen during the wedding, because he says like, I didn't come over there to make love to you. I came over there to comfort you. And you looked up at me with these big weepy eyes and you said, Harry, hold me for a little bit longer. What was I supposed to do? And she's like, you did it because you pitied me? Fuck you. And she like slaps him. And like, thank you. Good for you, Sally. We then see several weeks of Harry trying to get back in touch with her. He keeps calling her, and he's you see him saying to Jess, I'm through making a schmuck of myself. I'm not going to do it anymore. Then you see him with the karaoke machine calling her and singing "Call Me." And she finally answers the phone and says like, what do you want? So he's like, well, I just wanted to talk to you. And she's like, I'm on my way out. He's like, well, wait. Like, are you going to the New Year's party? We always said if we weren't with anyone, we'd go together. And she's like, no, Harry, I'm not your consolation prize. Stop. And hangs up the phone. So on New Year's, she's at the party having a horrible time. He's in his apartment and decides to go out for a walk. He passes by some of the places that they had spent time together. And it all of a sudden dawns on him, like, no, he's in love with her. He runs to the party and he says like the best line, which, because she's just like, no, like, I know it's New Year's. I know you're lonely, but no, I'm not going to be your consolation prize. She doesn't say it again, but it's along those lines. And he's like, no, I'm not here because of that. I'm here because I love you. And I like goes through all the things he loves. And he's like, when you realize that you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. And so she like starts crying and she's like, you say things like that and make it impossible for me to hate you. And I really hate you. And then they kiss. And that's the end, except for we now see them on the couch talking about their love story and telling about their wedding, where there was this coconut cake with a rich chocolate sauce on the side. I took way longer telling that than I anticipated. But there's so many gems.
You're so funny. You're like, it's a rom-com, so you kind of know what happens. So I don't need to go into detail. And then the blow by blow.
And then 30 minutes later, I think I want to start talking about ways that it is feminist. Sally, in a lot of ways, is kind of a badass in terms of like knowing herself, knowing like calling bullshit when she sees it. Like one of the first things that she says to Harry is, I can't remember how it comes up in the conversation, but he's talking about like, he thinks about death all the time. And she says, it doesn't make you deep or anything. And now as a 45-year-old looking at that, I can totally see the type of boy that Harry is supposed to be. I went to college with those boys.
I dated those boys.
Yeah. And he has this swaggering confidence about himself that she immediately pushes back on. So one of the things that they talk about at the diner on that first road trip, when they stop, they are arguing about the movie Casablanca, whether or not Ingrid Bergman's character wanted to go. And she's saying like, yes, of course she wanted to go because, women are practical. It was going to make more sense than for her to stay with Bogart. And he's like, you would rather have that passionless marriage than give up the man that you had the best sex of your life with. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I see. You haven't had great sex. And when I was younger watching that, and this is something I wish I had recognized in myself, I didn't get how much he was mansplaining her own experience to her. Like, I took it to mean like, oh, he's someone like he's been around. So he's had, he's like lots to compare to. And, she has only had one or two boyfriends or whatever. Like in my head, I was like, okay, I understand why he's saying that. And then like, there's a very funny moment where he says like, so who did you have this great sex with? And she's like, I'm not going to tell you that. And one of the other things that happens is when he says like, okay, fine, don't tell me. She immediately shares. And she's like, Shell Gordon. And he's like, Sheldon? You did not have great sex with Sheldon. If you need your taxes done, Sheldon's your man. You need a root canal, go to Sheldon. But for humping and pumping, Sheldon is not the guy, it's the name. Give it to me, Sheldon. You're an animal, Sheldon. Ride me, big Sheldon. She doesn't really, like, contradict him, but she is very much like, dude, like, you can't tell me what my experience is.
Yeah, it's just gross.
Yeah. And he then asked, like, well, why did you and Sheldon break up? She's like, how do you know I'm still with him? And he refers to him as Sheldon the Wonder Schlong or something like that. So, like, obnoxious prick. She had a very good reason for disliking him. So I really appreciate that. And I actually, when I was in my 20s and it was on heavy rotation in my VCR, I remember thinking that the fake orgasm scene wasn't necessarily in character for Sally, because they show her to be kind of like buttoned up. But watching it this time, my feeling is, yeah, she's someone who might get easily embarrassed, but what she really likes is like calling Harry out on his bullshit. And like, she's willing to be a little bit embarrassed in public to really embarrass the hell out of him.
She also was not embarrassed to like ask for what she wants, right?
Yes.
Like that's the whole high maintenance thing. I'm putting quotes around that. Like in the I like what I like, like the Nora Ephron in self-insert. Like, which a lot of women, we've been taught to not be okay with that. We've been taught to be very embarrassed about needing special treatment. So like in that sense, the sort of being okay with being embarrassed is completely in line.
Yes. Yes. And her, like, it is so funny, and it is like such a testament to Meg Ryan's talent that she goes through all this. And Meg Ryan actually suggested this for the scene. They had it that she was just they were going to be talking about it, about the orgasm gap. Not that they called it back then. And she was the one who suggested, what if she just fakes it right there in Katz's Deli? And they're like, yes. But so she goes through all of this thing. And then she stops and gives him this like sunny smile and eats a little bit of coleslaw. It's like, it's shit eating.
Yeah.
Sunny and shit eating at the same time. It is a fucking ray of sunshine.
Totally.
So that is amazing. Then her response to her incompatibility with Joe and her response to like the world of dating after Joe.
And her friends like, you got to get married before you die.
Her agency, but it comes back to I want what I want. And you actually even see at one point there's when she says like she wants apple pie, she wants it heated a la mode with strawberry ice cream on the side. And like she goes through this whole thing. Well, what if we don't have and if you don't have it, then nothing, not even the pie. And so it's just like she's willing to accept nothing if she can't get what she wants. And that is amazing. This is not someone who is like stomping her feet going like, I want what I want. Give me what I want. It's like, this is what I want. Okay, I'll move on.
Right.
Whereas Harry wants what he wants and is going to stomp and cry and get a karaoke machine to sing to an answering machine to someone who doesn't want to respond to him. Right. So in that way, like Sally's a pretty awesome protagonist, and it's pretty great seeing her navigate this odd friendship that takes 12 years. I mean, it takes 10 years to become a friendship, and then takes even more time for them to like become, well, not for them, for him to become someone that she could actually love. That was another thing that I saw that I really appreciated, and I'll include it in the show notes. There was a commentator, and I found it on Reddit, but he also has a Substack, saying that the movie is actually about Harry's moral arc, going from a complete piece of shit to being someone who is capable of being in a giving partnership and being worthy of Sally. And I think that that is a fair assessment. That is a reasonable assessment of how the story goes. The problem is,
Right. I'm with you.
Billy Crystal is so goddamn funny that you don't have to be me to forgive him for being such a dick.
Right. And then the consequences are that, like, we're given the message that we need to just wait.
Mm-hmm.
And that dick will turn into the guy that it's a Beauty and the Beast story again.
Mm-hmm.
It's another version of the Beauty and the Beast, where if we are patient, we women, then this prick will turn into someone who's worthy of our love.
And that is even better than what I think I actually took from this. Because I didn't think that Harry was a dick. I thought he was uncouth, but I thought the movie was telling me that he was right.
Mm.
Now, part of that is because I very much internalized the idea that I am high maintenance and that I am too much. And it seems like, Harry getting frustrated with Sally being high maintenance is that we are supposed to empathize with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a point where they show there's a montage of things they're doing together, and there's one point where you just see them in a restaurant and she's ordering, and she's going and going and going and going, and you see the waiter turn from her to Harry, and they both kind of roll their eyes at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are invited to find her ridiculous.
We're in on the joke with those two.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. At Sally's expense.
Sally's expense. So the high maintenance conversation, they're both at home, and they are together, like watching Casablanca. Like he's got it on, or she's got it on when he calls, and she says that's what's going on. He's like, oh, tell me what channel it's on. And so they're watching together, and they're quiet for a minute, and there's a scene, and Harry says, like, oh, Ingrid Bergman, total LM. She's like, what do you mean? And he's like, low maintenance. There's two types of women. There's low maintenance and high maintenance. And she is definitely low maintenance. And she said, well, which one am I? He's like, oh, you're the worst kind. You're high maintenance and you think you're low maintenance. And she said, I don't see that. And his response is, oh, really? Waiter, I'll have this, but I want the mustard sauce on the side, and unless blah, 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 blah. And she's like, well, I just want things the way I want things. And he says, yeah, high maintenance. And to Sally's credit, she refuses to accept this as a bad thing. But I don't know that the movie refuses to accept this as a bad thing.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
And Emily did not refuse to accept this as a bad thing. I took it in as like, oh yeah, I gotta be more like Ingrid Bergman.
More accommodating.
Yeah. And that is, and I think, like we've talked before about how some films are like time capsules.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are aspects of this. And I think even the idea that women are supposed to be low maintenance, and men get to decide what that means. Mm-hmm. Because like, oh my God, is Harry high maintenance?
She didn't go to Michigan, but it's another Big Ten school.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. His neuroses require emotional labor from her. And that's not something that men talk about around being high maintenance or low maintenance. Like, Sally's preferences require actual labor. Like, you have to put the mustard sauce on the side or whatever, but no emotional labor. That's her whole thing about, like, okay, then I just won't have anything. Mm-hmm. She doesn't complain about it. She doesn't need comforting about it. Oh my God. This is real-time epiphany, friends. that
That is
like
a little light bulb over Tracy's
there
head. Like,
is
I can see it.
actually a light bulb that when you say like men to get to decide, because men don't tend not to see the emotional labor that they cause, that they leave in their wake as anything. They don't see it at all. And so like super high maintenance dudes who require so much emotional labor from those around them don't see it. And then they think that because she wants the mustard sauce on the side, she's high maintenance. Holy shit.
And the conflict between them, because they have sex, and there's this great scene afterwards where Sally calls Marie and Harry calls Jess, and Jess and Marie each have their own phone on either side of the bed, and so we get the split screen. It's an amazing scene. They had to do 61 takes.
Whoa.
Because of the way that it was set up. We hear, each of them saying like what happened, and the way that Harry describes it is like, during was good, but then I felt suffocated. But she didn't want anything from him. And even when he talks about like, how long do I have to hold her? Is 30 seconds enough? Like, it's again, that's physical labor. It's physical closeness that he's objecting to. Oh, and his suffocation, like, it's all in his head because she hasn't asked anything of him.
Yeah.
That's an amazing insight. Yeah. And, again, like, props to Sally for being like, I'm not doing this for you. Because that's what she says when he's like, let's go to New Year's together. And she's like, I am not doing this for you. I am not giving you this free labor. It hurts. So stop.
Hooey.
So I want to talk a little bit about like the heteronormativity.
Okay.
So like the thesis, the people say that the thesis of the film is that men and women can't be friends. And like part of the problem of the film is that proves to be correct. They're friends, and then they end up falling in love. And I would like to push back on that, saying like the thesis proves correct, is it feels like Harry is able to actually see Sally as a full and complete human being because he is friends with her first. And that's what was necessary for him to get over like his misogynistic bullshit. So like it's not saying that men and women can't be friends. And like one of the things is like, those are Harry's words. Sally thinks he's nuts. And like, we don't really see any other characters talk about it. Like Sally asks Joe, like, do you have any women friends? He's like, no, but I'll get some if it's important to you. That's one of those things where like, it's in the mouth of the character. The character is clearly a misogynistic asshole. Character does not see women as full and complete human beings when he says it. And, this is his growth. But we don't get the movie pushing back on it exactly. And the movie showing like, actually, no, like friendship doesn't depend on what's between your legs. So that's
right. And the heteronormativity, I mean, you started this by saying heteronormativity, like one of my best friends in the entire world is a cis man who is also gay. But like the whole reason that he says that men and women can't be friends assumes heterosexuality.
Yes. So that was like where I was going next. Because he says like, every man wants to sleep with any woman. And it's like, no, that's not true. Like that assumes straightness. It also assumes allosexuality. Like there are asexual men out there.
Right.
Yes. Even like heteroromantic asexual men who, do want to be in love, but aren't interested in sex.
Right. Right.
So like, okay, that, and you could do that in a movie today.
Yeah. Like in 89, maybe they would have thought to talk about gay men. They would not have thought to talk about asexual
No.
folks.
Or transgender.
No.
Because that's the other aspect of it. It was just like, I cannot imagine a trans man or trans woman or non-binary person saying like, I can only be friends with people
Who are my same gender.
or my same gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that aspect of it. And we do, again, like we see some pushback, like when Harry says like all men are thinking that about cuddling after sex. And he is confidently wrong. And Sally reacts as if he is confidently wrong. But the movie doesn't necessarily show us that he's confidently wrong, except that when we see Jess and Marie in bed, when Sally and Harry call them, it's in the morning. It's like 6 a.m. and they are like spooning. They're all cuddled up and asleep. So like there is just a little bit of like, no, Harry, you don't speak for everyone. The other aspect of the heteronormativity is the way that women talk about marriage.
Yeah. Yes. That's where I thought you were going initially, actually,
Mm-hmm,
when you brought it up.
So now some of this, and this was there's a very interesting YouTube video that I'll link to in the show notes about I can't remember the name of the channel, but they talk about like spinsterhood in like they use an old fashioned word to describe like women who are happily single. And they say like, actually Sally is very much a spinster. The film has her end up married, but like we need to focus on the fact that happened despite the fact that she's happy to be single. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they said was like, yes, she does feel pressure to get married, but women today, spinsters today, feel that pressure. Mm-hmm. And it was much harder,
much worse than
in 1989.
Yeah. Yep.
So there is that, and that kind of comes back to like when Alice says, well, at least you could say you were married.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that line in Airplane.
Yep, same. Yeah, there was listeners, there's a line in Airplane where, you know, the woman's like this scared, she's never been so scared, and part of the problem is that she's never been married, and then they make a joke about it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so like the film buys into a little bit of the idea that women want marriage.
Yeah.
But again, Sally didn't until she realized she did. And it wasn't so much that she wanted marriage, it's she wanted
Harry.
a family.
Well, that with Joe. She wanted a family.
She wanted a family.
Yeah.
So like she wasn't like,
yeah, she didn't want a husband, she wanted kids.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a difference. Yeah.
One thing that's a little tough to watch, I mean, this is a charming movie. And one of the things that they did intentionally was they wanted to film it in as many beautiful places as possible to kind of show that not only are Harry and Sally not seeing each other, they're not seeing anything. They're not recognizing
the beauty that's around them.
The beauty that's around them. Uh-huh. But these are very privileged people.
Yeah.
And the conversation between Alice, Marie, and Sally about like men and getting married and, you know, Arthur's never going to leave his wife and all of that are the problems of privileged people, you know? And that's not to say that loneliness isn't a problem for everyone, but it like getting to that, like, well, at least you could say you were married is it's one of the reasons why I can understand where people get frustrated with like rom-coms.
Yeah.
Even though like that's the genre.
Yeah. Yep.
But gosh, like it's a both end with this film.
Yeah. That's where we started. You know, something that's occurring to me about this, and then we should probably move toward wrapping up, is, you know, thinking about the thesis of the film. I don't think this was an intentional thesis, but I'm thinking about the fact that like part of the takeaway for me in talking about it again with you just right now is the way in which Harry's heterosexual take on women from the beginning is fundamentally misogynist. Like the reason he can't be friends, you said this, but I'm just restating it. The reason that Harry can't be friends with women is because he doesn't see women as people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thesis, I feel like, not, or the takeaway maybe, because a thesis implies intent,
Mm-hmm.
is that when Harry sees a woman, Sally, as a human being, he grows as a person and he can't help but fall in love. And I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, but that as a takeaway, as an insight, actually does feel like comforting to a degree, right? That like Harry does grow as a human, right? He does become worthy, and he does it through finally like not seeing Sally as just an object.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, like I do feel like not the dialogue, but the script
Mm-hmm.
does some work to dismantle some of the like yucky shit that we inherited in the 80s and are still working with today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the problem is, and here's the both and, the problem is that then like, what is the like action step for folks? Like for women, make him see you as a human being. Like
This is
wait until he does. For men, hopefully there is actually an action step, like
Mm-hmm.
open your goddamn eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stop just like, she's not a vagina with legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but for women, it's, I don't know.
It feels a little bit like what we were talking about, I think 2 weeks ago with the toy, where it's like, if you're the right kind of nice to your oppressor.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like, I mean, and in some ways, like, God bless Nora Ephron and Sally, who, you know, is not fawning.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't get there through fawning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's not just about nice. It's also about arguing with in the right way.
Mm-hmm. Well, because like Sally still does, like, she refuses his bullshit. But when the third time they meet each other, and he says that that he and Helen have gotten divorced, like she truly feels empathetic towards him. When like I'm trying to think if there was someone like that in my life, who the third time I met them, like that.
Sure, I'll raise my hand to do emotional labor for you.
Yeah, yeah. Now, to be fair to Harry, he very sympathetically listens and like hears what happened between her and Joe. So like this is not just her like, oh, you poor baby,
Right.
Like, but it does change her, and some of that is like that's how we've been conditioned.
Totally.
And like Harry has grown enough at that point to be able to be friends with her, to be able to listen to her, hear her, and see her humanity in her heartbreak.
Yeah.
But it's
complicated.
It's complicated. And like, I don't regret loving this film. Like, I don't. There is so much in the film that is so funny. And like the chemistry between these two actors is just off the charts. Like, if they had gotten two different actors who didn't like exact same lines, like even did the orgasm scene, all of that, it wouldn't work. Because these feel like two people who like you and I have talked about how when you meet someone who just like you connect with.
Yeah.
I do this thing from there's a Gene Wilder movie called The Frisco Kid, where he's a Orthodox rabbi. He's traveling through America. He's thrown off a train and is like dejected, and he's walking and he sees in the distance some Amish people and he thinks that they're other Jews, and he starts running going, "Landsman!" And that's what I feel whenever I meet someone who immediately I'm like, we connect.
Yeah.
Like it's that landsman. And
Kindred
so,
spirits moment.
yeah. And so even when they hate each other, there is a connection between Harry
There's
and
that
Sally.
chemistry. Yeah.
And so that's like, that's part of the magic of storytelling through the medium of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like it wouldn't have been nearly as delightful if it were a book.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like if I were trying to read this,
yeah, Harry's just too much of a prick.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's through Billy Crystal's delivery that
and his charm,
mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually have a hard stop, so
Okay.
I'm gonna try and wrap us up.
Yeah. Just real quick, I don't think it passes the Bechdel test.
Oh, they only talk about men?
I was trying to think of an example, and they talk about a woman dating Harry. So,
okay. All right. I mean, it's not a surprise based on the other things that we've talked about.
Now, the woman dating Harry at that time, her name is Emily, and she is played by Tracy Reiner. So I thought that was kind of cool. So it's Rob Reiner's daughter.
Score. All right. So let me see if I can reflect back what we talked about. So I'm talking about Harry Met Sally. When Harry Met Sally here, Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron. And I think wow, we talked about so much with this. So the crux of the question that you brought to the table, I think, is feminist? ? That's ultimately the question that you're asking yourself and us of this film. And the answer is like, yes? ?
I guess.
Maybe not. Depends on how you look at it. So there are things about it that are feminist. Sally Albright, Meg Ryan Sally Albright is awesome. She's a badass. She is a spinster, in the words of one of the commentators that you read. Insofar as she's happy being single. She likes things the way she likes them, and she's perfectly content to accept the consequences if what she wants is not available, which is deemed high maintenance by this film. But in fact, through our analysis, through my like light bulb at top of my head blowing off, realizing that actually is like very specific with a specific kind of labor, which is very physical labor. Whereas Harry, who doesn't think that maintenance is even a word that should apply to him, is very high maintenance emotionally when it comes to emotional labor that Sally ends up having to do for him. Oh my God, I'm still reeling a little bit. So like this insight really, like in the meta question, in the societal question, is really underscoring the fact that it is men in a heteronormative setting who determine what high versus low maintenance looks like. And because they are the ones kind of making these determinations, don't even see the labor that they are causing in their wake. So on the other side of Sally's like unashamed spinsterhood is a lot of pressure over and over and over again, like pushing women into heteronormative relationships whereby marriage is the pinnacle, like said outright, like at least you die married. We hear from one of Sally's friends about, she needs to get on that because she could die any day, but at least she'd die married. So that kind of pressure that we're seeing, that in some ways is time capsule, but in some ways, like the movie doesn't fully, like as a script, doesn't fully like counter, because it does push Sally into marriage. And it also does show her, like the scene that I remembered where she was really sad because there's something wrong with her, that Joe didn't want to marry her. So there are like these moments that still, even though we're given with one hand this badass spinster, with the other hand, we're given these moments where she's pushed into matrimony. So some of the kind of like in terms of furniture of the mind, like I named that this has similar lessons to the Beauty and the Beast, whereby we women are expected to kind of like wait around for the asshole, the monster, to be transformed into someone worthy of our love. You took it even further and said that for you personally, like there was actually like you internalized the idea that you needed to be more accommodating, that being high maintenance and thinking you're low maintenance is actually a sin that you needed to try to avoid committing. And also because of Billy Crystal's charm, this film reified an impulse in you that already exists to kind of give a pass to really bad behavior if it is funny.
Go for the joke. Go for the joke.
Go for the joke. That was the mantra in our house. We talked a bit about heteronormativity and the what some people call the thesis of the film, which in Harry's voice says that men and women cannot be friends because the men are always thinking about sleeping with the women, and how like heteronormative that is, both around sexual orientation, also around allosexual versus asexual, also around gender expression. Like in many ways, folks who don't fit cis and straight and allosexual, meaning that they have sexual desire, don't fit into that everyman pronouncement that Harry makes from the beginning. And we talked about the fact that maybe not a thesis, but possibly a takeaway is not that men and women can't be friends, but that unless and until men see women as fully human, they can't be friends. And when they do, they grow as human beings and can possibly actually fall in love, so that they're not like trying to negotiate how long they are forced into physical intimacy, not sexual, but physical intimacy before they can split. What else? What I got? What you got? What I miss?
Gosh. I think you
I
basically
did
covered
it.
Yeah,
I got it all. Oh my
I can't
gosh!
think of anything that we mentioned that you didn't talk about.
Huzzah!
That's a first. I'm gonna like put this in my diary with a little blue ribbon.
little heart for Tracy.
I do just want to a last note. Like, I think that this movie is worth watching. Like, it is in the like it was part of like the historical record. I can't remember what they call it, but it's culturally significant. And I think that is right. I think that is the right thing to do. I think that it is a good movie to watch. But I think that we need to make sure that when we watch it, we talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I come from, where I get with everything that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Is like, you can watch this, you can be charmed by Billy Crystal and laugh at his one-liners, and like the, Sheldon the Wonder Schlong is very, very funny phrase. But you need to make sure that when you're watching it with someone who does not have the life experience that you and I have, that you talk about, like, can you see how that's a little bit of a problem?
He's kind of a dick, ain't he?
Yeah. And but it's also like, we need to really like lift up, because I kind of glossed over how badass Sally is.
Mm-hmm.
Is the other aspect of it. Like, I glossed over how much of a dick Harry was, and I didn't see
what a badass she was.
What a badass Sally was.
Yeah.
And how important it was that she pushed back.
And that makes sense too, because of the way in which we have been trained to identify with the male protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Always.
As a culture. Culture.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. All right. Next week, I'm going to bring you my deep thoughts about Big Trouble in Little China.
Ooh.
So
I have not watched that movie, I think, since I was a kid.
Me neither. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it holds up.
All right.
See you then.
See you then.
Do you like stickers? Sure, we all do. If you head over to guygirlsmedia.com/sign up and share your address with us, we'll send you a sticker. It really is that easy. But don't wait. There's a limited quantity. Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes. Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?